people can explain away a lot of their behaviors, bad behaviors,
Yeah.
due to their childhood traumas and the healing work that they've done. But dude, fucking take accountability.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Show Up with Christine Chang. Today we have Yue Xu on the show. I'm having a little anxiety about my Chinese pronunciation.
That was perfect pronunciation.
Saturday's Chinese school growing up till I was about 10 years old. And I'm like, what tone is it? Is it Yue?
It's Yue.
Yue Wei.
Yeah, Yue.
Oh, Yue.
Yue. But then the Americanized version is Yue.
Yue.
It actually went through a few different renditions, but it netted out at Yue.
Okay.
And I've met other YUEs who've said this, pronounced the same way, which is funny that they also had the same American assimilation.
Okay, because in high school I did have a friend named Yue, but she spelled it YU-WEI.
That would make it a lot easier.
But pinyin style, it would be you. When I read your name, I was like, oh, you Xu. Oh, Yue.
Yue Xu. And then the Xu is the only, I think it's only in Chinese and French does that sound exist.
You're
is
right.
Yeah, it's a very difficult sound. So the fact that you mastered it is applause. Chinese school paid off.
I never heard that from my Asian elders. It was usually shame.
I will give you validation.
Thank
Christine.
you. Thank you. You're really great with people. So Yue, I'm just going to say the American way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yue. She is an on-air host, and she specializes in the topics of dating, tech, and fitness. And like a proper creative LA person, you do multiple things.
Just like you.
I read your bio. I looked at your Instagram. I said, we are the same person.
Like, hi, twinsy. Like, yeah.
We have a dog that has an Instagram account.
Is he anxious as well?
A little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then my best friend, she's like, that's you. And it's weird because on the surface, it's calm, right?
Right.
People don't think that. But the dog will show you who you are.
The dog is a mirror of who you are, who you do not want to show the world.
All right, so you do a lot of things, but for this episode, this conversation, we're going to focus on dating.
Please.
So fun.
So fun.
So fun. And you're so good at articulating and taking account people and modern dating. From what I've heard of your advice, it's not completely textbook, which I think is needed because I think so many people, they want to get it right. So they're reading books, they're studying, psychology, all these things, and it's so logical. And sometimes the dating advice I've heard is like one size fits all.
Yeah.
Yours doesn't seem like that.
But that's why you and I are very similar. You also speak in the same way because dating is so nuanced, so based on your preferences, your upbringing, your societal conditioning. How can there be a one size fits all?
Right. I think that's why it can be challenging or difficult for some people.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the most common problems or complaints that you come across from people coming to you?
I think you've probably heard this one so much. There are no good people out there. Nobody wants to settle. Nobody wants to commit. I'm the only one out there looking for a partner. Hear that one a lot. Also hear this one I find very relatable. I have every other part of my life figured out except for my love life. And these are always from high-performing, independent, ambitious women who feel like, listen, I worked really hard to get to where I am today, but why can't I just get this love life part figured out?
Yes, I definitely resonate with that. I mean, that was me for many years when I was dating, trying to figure it out. Yeah. And that's what inspired me to write my book on it. Because I was thinking, gosh, if I had something like this, it would have helped me a lot during that time when I felt like I was on a hamster wheel.
I mean, no kidding. You and I grew up with books like Why Men Love Bitches, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. It's just terrible, terrible dating advice. That was very textbook. We had nowhere to turn. And who are we supposed to turn to? Our friends are just an echo chamber of what we've heard from Cosmo magazine. So we grew up in such a toxic dating environment in general.
You're right. And I think about also with like the R&B songs that we grew up
Yeah.
on, a lot of them are about the good ones
Yep.
are about heartbreak, longing, not healthy.
Unrequited love, playing hard to get, or you know, being chasing after someone or being chased, butterflies, chemistry, all the shit that doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's funny. And now me being married, I mean, I'm learning so much. I joke, but it's true. When I have more experience being married, then I might write another book on, because it's a different skill set completely. V and I have been together just over 8 years now, and it's God. People just need to talk about it more.
I'm so glad you're normalizing the conversation. I mean, the fact that I was listening to you and Michelle talk about how sometimes you don't need to travel together. You don't need to be together all the time. And I think there are all these like preconceived notions that people have about being in a relationship that don't translate to when they're dating. So it's like, you think once you get in a relationship, everything's resolved. Your life is fine. You're going to be together all the time. You're going to have shared interests and you're going to grow at the same pace. And you are example of being like, okay, let's just be honest here. I mean, there are
Yes.
other issues that come up after you get in a relationship and after you get married.
Yes, I personally think it's harder than dating. Well, dating, once it clicked for me, it became easy. That's what I was looking for. I was like, why is this so hard for me?
Interesting.
But once
Okay.
I got it, I was like, okay. And a lot of it for me personally was the healing because it kicked up these emotions of abandonment, betrayal, all that was from childhood, so hurtful. Once I got past that and got the hang of it, I was like, okay, I got it. And maybe I'll say the same thing about marriage when I get more experience. But right now, it feels so new to me because it's my longest relationship ever.
Right. And also, nobody has it figured out.
That's true.
Right?
No one knows what the fuck they're doing. This
No
is true.
one. I mean, look at our parents. I look at my parents all the time and I'm like, they got lucky that they learned to love each other. They got lucky. I would say 80% of their friends are either completely contentious in their relationships or they're falling out of their relationships without love to begin with, because who taught them how to love? So we are lucky that we get to learn on the job, so to speak, and know that nobody has it figured out. None of our predecessors had it figured out.
Totally. Okay, so I want to jump into some practical advice. A lot of people, they always complain about online dating or where do I go to meet someone? What do you usually tell these people?
This is what I say, like, if you don't know, if you're given a power drill and you don't know what the fuck to do with it, you're probably going to hurt yourself. It's the same thing with online dating. It's a tool. It was not meant to hurt you. It was supposed to help you. So if you don't use it in the right way, it'll probably hurt you or cut off a finger or whatever it may be. So there are dangers to everything in life if we don't use it in the right way. So when people do complain about online dating, I would say don't look at online dating as a problem. Look at the person using online dating as the problem.
Take responsibility.
What a concept. Accountability. But we don't want to. I think that's
It's
the
easier
other.
not to.
It really is. In modern culture, we're so much about, in modern dating, especially in today's world, we're about the cancel culture. We're about canceling other people. We're about the woke culture where other people are doing things wrong and why other people need to get on board with the modern evolutions. But we don't take, if we don't take responsibility for ourselves, how can we go and blame other people? Like, why can't we just get our own shit together? And you talk about this a lot on your show. It's like, if you get your own shit in order, even in your own marriage, if you work on yourself the most, then your relationship is going to get better as a result of it.
Absolutely. So with online dating, if someone says, I hate it, would you recommend that they're not on it, or do you still kind of encourage them to be on it in a healthy way?
I would sit with that and ask, what is it that you hate about online dating. And I think most people would say texting that goes nowhere, or people that flake and ghost, or people who aren't in it for the right reasons. And then I would ask, wouldn't you run into the same type of issues if you went to a bar or an event and try to find someone? You also have no guarantee that all these people are looking for the same things, that they won't flake on you or ghost you. So that's number one. And two is, how can you be in the driver's seat of your own love life? So how can you make online dating work for you? We've suggested things such as like, how about time boxing the time you spend online dating? You know, I think that's like what's burning people out the most, is the time and effort they spend swiping. Even just a few minutes a day takes a toll on your mental health. So how about just doing it on a Wednesday for 1 hour, 7 to 8, you know, and time boxing it? There's so many different ways for you to reshift that thought and think, how can I make online dating work for me, as opposed to be a victim of online dating?
Exactly. I think using it as when I was dating, I was online as well. I was open. I was like, I don't care how he gets here. If he's here, he's
Yes.
here.
Yeah.
Right? So I viewed online dating as just another way of meeting people. And I think in general, I would give advice like, if you don't feel good, maybe just don't open the app, because you're just going to confirm to yourself however you're feeling.
Totally.
Right? But if you're kind of curious and open-minded, and I mean, it is like a social app, so I think it could get addictive.
Yes.
Too, of like, let me see what's out there. Is there something better?
Right.
Which
Right.
is a curse of a lot of people dating today, right? Like, nothing's good enough.
Right. And we just have to be really honest about that. Again, we have control over our lives and our love lives. So if we feel like we're falling into this addiction cycle, then again, take accountability and say, I need to get off the apps just for a few days, or I really need to control the time I spend on online dating. We can say the same thing for social media or online shopping. I think Amazon's extremely addicting, but but these are also tools for us to have more options and to have variety. So let's appreciate them for what they are, and also know our own limitations.
Absolutely. What about when people are out and about and they want to meet someone new? Do you have any tips or pieces of advice? What's effective?
I know. One is be normal. I think we've forgotten how to be normal in real life. I was so funny. I was like, I live in Culver City, and I was walking downtown the other day, and I just looked at these people standing in line for a coffee, and everyone was on their phones. Like, they cannot even bear spending a minute talking to a stranger. And I thought, wow, that's the world we live in today. No wonder people aren't meeting each other. They're in physical close proximity, but not emotional close proximity, because they're on their phones. They're in a virtual world. So the first piece of advice I always say is, put away your phones and put away your headphones. Make sure that you are open, that you are accessible, and that you are open to people approaching you, and not closed off with all the devices that we have these days.
Totally. I mean, I can be guilty sometimes.
Same.
For sure. But when I see other people on it, just say, we live by the beach, and then I'll see some people on their phone, and it looks actually really sad to me.
Yes.
Right? Eyes aren't up, just, sometimes we have work stuff, whatever, but just consumed with this little device in front of us.
And I don't know if you've ever seen this before, but when I lived in San Francisco, I would be out with some, friends of mine, and usually guy friends of mine, who would go to a bar and they'd be like, oh, that girl's really cute, and then open up a dating app to try to find her. And I'm like, just go talk to her. Why can't you just approach her? And they're like, no, it's much easier if we just match first. And then I can go up to her and say, wow, look, we just matched on the dating app. Like, I think that's kind of creepy, but whatever.
That's so funny. I think it's different for the younger generation too. Like, are these guys younger?
I would say no. I wish I could say it's Gen Z, doing their thing. No, but they're mostly my age, which is like an elder millennial.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so it's true. People are more lonely today, more disconnected. let's say we get on to the date. What are some ways that people can build connection and not just have, that surface level talk?
What we often see when we do our interviews with daters is that we hear this a lot. I went on a date with someone. I know everything about his life. He knows everything about my life. Felt like we got really deep about life and never saw this person again. I wonder why. And then my next question is, did you two talk about you two at all? And what I mean by this is we often build rapport. Like we have friends with, we build rapport with friends because of the shared memories and experiences. Now, oftentimes we reminisce. We're like, oh, Christine, remember that time when we went out, to that bar and we had that drink? When two strangers come together, like from a dating app, I always say, ask, what was your first impression of me? What was it about me that you wanted to reach out to? Am I who you expected now that you met in person? It's like, bring it back to you and this person in the room, not about your past experiences or your life. That can come later. I think the first bonding moment is always about, what do you and I share together that's unique?
You majored in sociology, right?
Yes.
Double major, UC Berkeley, like a good Asian.
Made my parents very proud. And still I look back and I'm like, was that my choice? Always a question for a lot of Asian kids is like, were any of those my choices? I don't know.
Well, business is the more practical
Yes,
one.
that was for
our
my
parents.
Yes, that was a gift for them.
But sociology helps a lot,
Yes.
I'm sure, right?
Yes.
Because you're so good with people.
And I love it. I love the research and I love observing these trends and behaviors of people. And I think that's why I was so drawn to that major. But even just like, we are all sociologists, we're all constantly observing people. That's something that I think social media has done really well for us, is that we get to see society through other people's eyes. The content creators are so good about that. So I do appreciate that aspect, but I also do wonder if sometimes we live too much in other people's worlds that we forget that we also have our own world to live in.
Okay, just say a date went well and you're interested
Yeah.
in seeing the person again. What would you recommend someone do as a follow-up? When do I text?
Yes.
Do I text? Do I wait for him to text?
There's certain things in dating that are just a complete fucking waste of time. Waiting for a text, waiting for someone to respond back, waiting for someone to reach out to you, waiting for someone to ask you out. If you truly feel compelled to see this person again, ask them out. You can ask them out right on the date. You can text them right away. There are no rules. But if you are the one waiting, it just means you've handed the keys over to someone else. That also means you've handed your heart over to someone else. Now they can control your emotions. Now you are upset when it's been 3 days and they haven't texted you. Now you are sad because they said they wanted to see you next Thursday and it's already Wednesday. You haven't heard back. It's a complete waste of time, because all of that time you could have been using to connect with this person, you're wasting on something that you had completely no control over if you just hand it over to them.
I love that. It reminds me of, I had a friend when I was dating and on the hamster wheel. She was married and she had already been married for over 10 years. But the number one piece of advice she would always say to me, she said, you choose. You're letting people choose you. You choose.
Yes. And that's still a concept I have a hard time with, because being an immigrant, the immigrant mentality is you assimilate and you want to belong and you want other people to accept you. So I think that really transpired in the way I date. It's like, I wanted to be accepted. I wanted people to like me. I wanted to be asked out on the second date. I never really sat with myself and thought, do I really like this person? Do I want to be in a relationship with this person? What do I want? And I still have a hard time with that, Christine. I still sit with myself sometimes and ask, do I want that? Like, is that something I like?
That's a really good point, because growing up, if you have Chinese parents, You're never asked, what do you think?
Never.
What do you want to do? It's never.
Never. Never. And if they do ask, it's out of courtesy, but that's your choice has already been made for you.
Yes, that's such a good point. And I do see some, because most of the people who listen to this podcast, they're high performers. And I think a lot of Asians tend to fall into that category.
Yeah.
Because excellence is pushed on us. Do a good job, don't make us look bad.
Yeah, and even for all of the high performing listeners who are listening to this right now, I ask you, is that your choice? Is that your choice to be this ambitious, to be this goal oriented? Do you ever just want to breathe? Like, if there were no societal boundaries to what you do or parental boundaries, what would you actually want to do with your life right now? What the partner you're with right now, is this someone that you chose or someone that you thought your parents would really like or that your family would really appreciate? And yes, there is an aspect of we want our parents to accept the partners we're with, right? You want them to get along, and it's nice to get along with the in-laws. But end of the day, they're not marrying your partner. You are the one spending every day with them.
Oh my gosh, I'm kind of going through that with my
Are you?
second half. Well, career stuff. Because what used to drive me, and it was really effective, is this feeling of like never being enough. Like I'm supposed
Yes.
to excel at
Yes.
things. And so building my first company, so I used to photograph weddings for 15 years. That was easy because that's what was fueling me. I did have a genuine love for it, but I noticed after I did healing work and really got clear and in tune with myself, making more choices for myself, I do notice I'm a little less ambitious now. So I've had to shift. I'm like, what is my drive now? And I'm like looking for inspiration, but like, what is the purpose outside of me? That I've been struggling with. It's getting better now, but the last few years there were some lows.
Really?
Yeah.
So you started feeling that after you were doing the healing work. That
Yeah.
really unlocked a lot of this for you.
Yeah, and not needing other people's approval or applause, letting that go. Just question like, why? Why am I doing this?
Yes.
That has really unlocked a lot. And I'm still doing things, but it's just different. The motivation is different.
I love that. I'm seriously resonating with that so much. And I had to take a deep breath because I can't tell you how many people are going through this metamorphosis. And it's like, I call it a Truman Show moment where you realize you were just a byproduct of society for so long, or a show where people produced your life and made decisions for you. And then you can now break free of that show and say, now I can start living the life that I choose. So ambition is now redefined, right? You're still ambitious, but not in the traditional sense of what you know. It's not the money and power and career. You're ambitious in the way that you're chasing after your most authentic self. I think that's the most compelling ambition of all.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and you're right. It's just fulfillment and happiness. What does that actually look like to me? And thanks for saying that, because I almost made it like, am I ambitious or not? Like, right. Do I want like the corporate type of money or like to live on a farm?
Right. And it's just all how you put it, right? And then I think the old you probably would have said, okay, I'm no longer ambitious, but you are just shedding that part of your identity. And I think this is also something that I'm going through in my 40s. And I always say, like, turning 40 completely changed my life. I had to grieve a lot of shedding old identities. I had to let some parts of me die. And I hear this a lot from my friends who are new parents, who are in new relationships, who are in new careers. The old you of being the single one, or being the career-driven one, or being the family-oriented one may no longer be part of your identity, and that's okay. But we have to take time to bury that and memorialize that and say that was part of me, and maybe it no longer is.
Thanks for tuning into my podcast. I want to take a minute to talk about my favorite instant coffee company, Strong Coffee Company. There's a bunch of healthy ingredients inside like collagen, MCT oil, L-theanine, and neurofactors. So that means extreme focus, no crash, no jitters, and it's also instant. You just add water, so it's really, really quick. They have a few different flavors, but my personal favorite is this one. It is the cacao. The other ones are hazelnut, vanilla, and they have just regular like black drip coffee. If you're interested in giving them a try, use code Christine Chang at checkout for 15% off.
I'm curious, what are some of the things that you shed?
Oh, so much. I think my major Truman Show moment was last year in May when I found my partner of 5 years had been cheating on me. And it was just such a strange moment because we were in the middle of moving him completely to LA. He lived in San Francisco. He still had an apartment in San Francisco. And it was time for him to just permanently move down to LA with me and have this life together. So we had plans of getting married by the end of that year. We were actually in the middle of trying to have kids. And we were in San Francisco moving his shit, and I just had a weird feeling. The universe was like, you might want to take a pause. So when I found all the evidence I need to see, plus more, I realized that this life that I had been working towards that year, I mean, it was May of 2023. I was like, oh, by December, we're going to be married and maybe pregnant by then, was not the life I wanted.
Oh, wow.
It was such a strange experience because I wasn't grieving that. It was, everyone's like, are you so sad you have to start over? And I realized I'm not starting over because that was not the trajectory that I wanted for my life. It was a trajectory my parents sure wanted. It was a trajectory that by that age and by the time that you've been with someone for 5 years, you probably should think about. But it wasn't what I wanted. And it was the most liberating yet scary process to go through to say, then what is it that I want if I'm shedding that? What is it that I'm really after? So that was number one. And number two, I think after that breakup, I realized I'm meant for something more. And I don't even know what more means, Christine. And I'm still trying to meditate on that word. It's like more, more, more. Last year, my word was magic. This year, I'm like more something. And I don't know what that is yet. But it's not ambition in that traditional sense. It's not a career in that traditional sense. It's like more of me. And I'm trying to figure out what that is.
I'm wondering, for your Truman Show moment or aha moment, did something spark that? Was it a moment like, oh my gosh, and you feel relief, or was it a process through the grieving?
Maybe a combination of both. That's a really good question. Probably a combination of both. I don't wish anybody to experience infidelity, but that relationship had to go through that for it to end. Because I was so ambitious about making the relationship work, it had to end in a dramatic way for me to completely cut it off. And you've also said in previous episodes, like when a woman's done, she's done. I needed that moment. I needed a reason to be done. And so that was necessary. But it was the months after, probably 3 months after, with a combination of therapy and psychics.
Yeah. I love a good psychic.
Oh, girl. I still read what she said to me. I took notes and I still read those notes on a weekly basis just to remind me, it's not so much the predictions, but to remind me I'm on the right path.
Yes.
I'm exactly where I need to be.
Yes.
That's it. It's a validation for me.
Yes, that's what I think a good psychic or reader does, is they just pull out of you.
Yes.
They can read you well and just kind of validate where you are.
Exactly. And what's also interesting, we can, a whole other tangent, but a good psychic is not predicting your future as if it's magic. They're predicting your future based on who you are today.
Yes.
Right? The future you're creating yourself based on who you are today.
Yes, exactly. That's because for some people who aren't into it,
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't go to them asking like, oh, what's going to happen
Right.
in 2 years? you have control of your life. Someone can tell you you're going to get divorced, and you can act
Yeah.
a different way where you don't get divorced.
Exactly.
Okay, right?
Exactly.
It's so funny. I haven't seen one in a while. It might be time soon.
Should we call one up now? Can we do a joint one?
Sometimes, do you ever get scared to see one though?
Kind of.
Yeah,
Kind of. But I mean, they ask you, do you want to hear the bad stuff?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah. Normally, I don't. It depends on what we're
It
talking
depends.
about.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Like, okay, if it's about career, like, yeah, tell me the bad stuff. But if it's about family, I'm like, please don't. I don't want to know. Please don't. I'd rather be in denial.
It's so funny. But I love that. Thank you for sharing, by the way. That's huge.
Yeah.
What you went through. Betrayal is not, I've experienced it as
Yeah.
well. It is not fun. It's a beautiful teacher once you get through it.
Yes. Yes. And, I really felt like that was my moment to take control of my life and take control of my narrative, because when that night, when this was all going down, the motto I had in my head was just like, you take control of the narrative. This is your life. This is not a plot that just happened to you. This is your narrative, and you're going to take control of it. So I did. I actually, months later, reached out to one of the other women, and we became friends, and she came on Dateable, and we had a whole episode with her, because I also wanted to hear her side of the story. And I don't want women to be pitted against women like all these fucking rom-coms have done in the past. It's like, ooh, she stole your man, or she seduced your man. She had no idea I existed till he told her much later. So she also was falling for someone who had completely betrayed her too. So I love the fact that, I felt so empowered in that experience. Like, I didn't let myself become a victim to this. I became the heroine in this story.
Were you able to separate that it wasn't personal when you found out?
It's so hard. It's so hard to not take it personally. I mean, the things that, that he said throughout our relationship that I replayed back, even though they weren't really related, they were amplified during this time, and all the insecurities were excavated from me. All of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, what I was so insecure about in the 6th grade is now coming back too. But then I had to remind myself, like, I'm a badass. I've created this life for myself. The home was mine in LA. I had a great network of friends in LA. I had to just remind myself that I was someone special and important, and I would not let someone else take that away from me. Why would I ever let someone do that? So it took a while. I'm not going to lie. There were definitely moments where I was like, oh, am I just going to be single for the rest of my life? I'm just not dateable. But then I quickly snapped out of it. I felt really proud of myself for doing that.
That's great. Do you have any recommendations for someone who maybe it took a toll on their self-worth, and getting back to that confident place? Is there anything tangible they can do besides seeing a therapist, or are there like affirmations or anything like that?
I listened to a lot of podcasts about betrayal after this happened. And there was one woman who has an entire podcast about infidelity, which is crazy. I don't know if I could talk about infidelity every week. But she had one really great piece of advice. She said, after this happens to you, when you feel up for it, do something kind of scary and challenging, because you're going to be so proud of yourself after you do this. And also know that you control your life after this. So I did a series of things after this. Tennis has always been something I admired other people doing. I was never athletic or never really into sports growing up. And I was always into dance, but like competitive sports was never my thing. It scared the shit out of me. And I got into tennis. I took lessons, and now I'm enrolled in this like weekly tennis clinic. And then I took myself on a trip to Greece, and I told myself, magic was my word last year. Let the magic happen. let's just be alone. Let's just meet people. Let's just do whatever you feel like doing. And that was so transformative to be in a place where, by the way, he and I had planned to go for our 5th anniversary, to go, nope, I don't need to do that with him. I can do that with myself. And it was probably the best 5-year anniversary I could have given, anniversary gift I could have given myself. So it was just, yeah, it was definitely a combination of do something challenging, rewarding, and maybe a little bit scary, and then to reward yourself for what you've gone through and how far you've come. Those would be the two.
That's fantastic advice. Have you traveled alone before that?
I traveled alone a lot before, but it was never intentional healing. It was always like, this will be fun, and oh, let's eat some good food. But this was intentional healing. I went on this trip with my magic meditation stone and said, I am here to heal, and I am here to allow magic to happen.
It's for you.
For me.
Yeah, that's the difference, right?
Yes.
When you start doing it for you.
Yes, that's so true. That's so true. And that's a very good point. It was probably the first time I had gone on a solo trip purely for myself. I mean, the other times were like to prove something or for Instagram or for good stories. This was so sacred to me that it was just about me and for me.
I love that. Okay, we're going to segue to being a little more practical again, even though I like the heart stuff.
When do we start crying?
You need both, right?
Yeah.
I've heard you say about attachment theory and love languages are BS. Can you please elaborate on that?
I love it. When Christine and I were connecting about this episode, she asked me what are topics that I want to discuss. And that was one of the major ones I sent to you, like attachment theory, love languages. I think they're BS because it goes back to what we were talking about in the beginning. There's no one size fits all. But the problem with one size fits all theories, like attachment theory and love language, is that it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. So when you find that you are avoidant attached or you're anxious attached, then everything is explained away that way. Well, it's because I'm anxious attached, that's why. But then you end up not taking accountability for maybe bad dating behavior. Same with love languages. I mean, you could be like, yeah, my love language is a quality time and my partner's not giving me quality time. So therefore we're breaking up. But then it's like, did you take the accountability of expressing that quality time is important to you? Did you take the accountability of expressing why that's important to you or why you think it's important to yourself? Don't just box yourself in to some quiz that knows nothing about you, that is so disconnected who you are at your truest self, and then build your whole life around it.
Totally. I think at one point I got too heady with it, and I had a good friend who called me out on it because I was in that mode where I just really wanted to get it right.
Yes.
And I think what I came across was it actually was good advice. A divorced buddy had said what he learned in his first marriage was, I think it's called the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Are you familiar with that pyramid? But he was saying that he and his ex-wife chose each other based on the bottom stuff, or like the lifestyle stuff, where your shared values and beliefs are at the top. And he's like, if those don't match, it's really, you can't really change that. But if those match, everything else is workable. So it made sense to me. He's like, so we were trying to go like bottom up and it didn't work. And so I was like explaining it to a friend. She's like, I think you're overthinking this. So I did keep it in the back of my mind that shared values and beliefs were really important to me. And from my life experience as well, I learned you really can't change that about someone else.
So true.
Right, unless they grow and they happen to change.
Yeah.
But I was like,
But you
okay.
can't control that.
Right.
Yeah.
You cannot change anybody.
I know. Or your dog, I've learned. I've tried.
But yeah, all the the technical stuff and the books, which is helpful for understanding yourself, using as that tools to understand.
That is a word. It's the tools. It's what matters in dating and relationship is having the tools to communicate and having the tools to deal with conflict. Important. And in a partnership, while you're dating, it's also important to know how to build a foundation with someone. And that's beyond attachment theory or love languages. It's like, how do we want to operate in our relationship? And how do we want to navigate conflict? As long as two people know what the rules of engagement are and know how you want to operate as a team, then everything else is just, like you said, workable. And so we can't think about everything too theoretically because everything needs to be put into practice first before you work on like kind of the bigger thoughts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think from both people, you need willingness.
Yes.
A willingness, one desire to be in the relationship and willingness
Yes.
to work on it. Because someone can be the most compatible, or some people say, I really want someone who's done a ton of personal growth. And I say that doesn't mean anything because they could have done a bunch of personal growth or be self-aware and they could still not be willing to work at a relationship. And I actually kind of see that a lot where the people in the personal growth world, they seem to have a lot of trouble with intimate relationships. Do you see that? You want to know what I'm talking about?
Yes. Sorry, I'm sighing so much. I had a girlfriend who dated someone who was very enlightened. I think according to him, he had been working on himself for 20 plus years with therapists and different gurus and all kinds of retreats and ayahuasca trips and, one of those.
Yeah.
But when it came down to their relationship and conflicts, he always felt like he was a superior one, that he knew best. And he wasn't able to create a safe space for her to communicate her own needs. And I think what was a problem with that was that he was so focused on how far he'd come, he couldn't recognize how far she'd come. And that's what you ultimately need in a partner, someone who sees you and recognizes you, not just about them and their journey. It's also about your journey too. So I'm not saying this is with everybody who's done a lot of personal work, but the personal work people have done is different than the relational work that they've done. And a relationship is relational. It's not just self-care.
Yeah, different skills.
Very different skills.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
The guy that you described, I know it like
You can see
exactly that avatar.
You can see him, right? And he's like, yes, on my 5th ayahuasca trip, I realized that I had an outer body experience where I had healing from all these childhood traumas of abandonment. And I realized that in a relationship, I'm just really fearful of abandonment and someone leaving me. And you bringing up this, and me not taking out the trash makes me feel like you are about to abandon me if I don't take out the trash another day. Like, what the fuck, dude? Just take out the trash. Yes. What does ayahuasca have to do with this? But I mean, honestly, I think that people can explain away a lot of their behaviors, bad behaviors,
Yeah.
due to their childhood traumas and the healing work that they've done. But dude, fucking take accountability.
Yes. I like to tell people, like, look at actions. How are they showing up right now?
Yes.
Not in the beginning of the relationship, not what they say. What are they doing?
What are they doing?
How are they showing up right now?
So true.
We're running out of time
I
already.
know,
I want to talk
I
longer.
know.
We'll have to do a part 2.
I know.
There's so many things.
Can we be here all day? Can we make a retreat out of this and we'll call a psychic? Phone a psychic. That should be a new segment.
Okay, to close out, what do you think of marriage? Do you think that it's an outdated institution?
Ooh, wait, we have like 2 minutes and this is what you close out with? I'm so sad. That's why we need a part 2. this is part of the work that I'm currently going through with myself is what do I want out of marriage if I want marriage? It was always something I just assumed I would do. Now I get a choice. Is that something I want? So currently this is where I stand, and this keeps evolving. I think marriage is becoming outdated, but there needs to be another stage between committed living together and full-on marriage for life. And I think that middle stage is marriage with renewals, like a 7-year marriage. And I think I've heard many therapists talk about this too. It's you get married, but by law, you're only married for 7 years. And then after 7 years, like you right now, Christine,
Yeah.
you get a choice. Do you renew? Do you renew with intention, or do you choose to cancel? And no, none of that alimony and divorce and prenup bullshit, because that's always what clouds a divorce and a relationship is like, oh, I'm going to be punished after we get divorced. No, after 7 years, you can walk away totally at peace with your decision, or you can choose to intentionally renew with your partner. I think that could be the new way of doing marriages.
It does make sense because I think it's completely normal to evaluate, is this relationship still serving me to the
Yeah.
highest good and the person that I want to be?
Yeah.
Right? And that can change over time.
Yeah. Yeah. And people change. And, you said it takes two to both people have to be willing, but it also just takes one person to not be willing.
Yeah.
And if they make that choice, the other person should be able to walk away without any consequences.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Okay, you're definitely coming back. For
I'm
part
coming
2.
back.
If there's anything you would like us to specifically talk about, put it in the comments below.
Yay.
If people would like to send you a DM or find all your things, where can they do that?
Yeah, please send me an appropriate DM if possible. I've gotten a few in the last few years and I'm like, whoa, dang, didn't know they came that big. You can DM me. You can find me on Instagram at nonplatonic is my handle, or you can find me also as part of the Dateable podcast. I co-host it with Julie, my co-host Julie Kraftchick, and the handle's at Dateable Podcast.